Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Today in the rLounge, what happens when accountability refuses to quietly leave the room? The police got involved. The financial audit kept digging. The truth got worse instead of better. And everyone who insisted that this was just a misunderstanding is now discovering that bank records, security footage, and guilty pleas tend to ruin denial pretty quickly. In short, the theft was bigger, the consequences got real, the marriage didn't survive. Am I the a-hole for cutting my stepson off financially after discovering he's been stealing from my elderly mother? I married my wife 8 years ago when her son was 19. He never warmed up to me, and honestly, I wasn't trying to force anything. His biological father died when he was 12, so I understand there was history there. But I treated him decently, paid for his last 2 years of college, helped with rent when he was starting out. My mother is 78 and lives alone about 40 minutes from us. She got early stage dementia, nothing severe yet, but enough that I started checking on her finances every month about a year ago. She's comfortable, owns her own house outright, has a decent retirement fund. I'm an only child, so it's just me looking after her. The stepson is 27 now, still acts entitled to everything. My wife coddles him constantly and makes excuses every time he fails at something. He's bounced between different things, never lasting more than 18 months anywhere. Currently unemployed again. My wife calls it finding himself. I call it mooching. About 3 weeks ago, I was going through my mother's bank statements, like I always do. She has online banking and I have access to monitor everything. Found a withdrawal for $800, then another for $1,200, then several smaller ones, all from her checking account over 2 months. I called her immediately. She sounded confused and said she didn't remember taking out that much cash. I asked if she gave her debit card to anyone. Long pause. Then she mentioned the stepson had visited a few times recently and had been helpful with grocery shopping and errands. Said he offered to grab cash for her once because the ATM near her house was broken. I drove over first thing the next morning. Checked her purse. The debit card was there, but when I asked about her PIN, she had it written on a piece of paper in her wallet. I nearly lost it right there. Asked how many times he'd been over. She said maybe 5 or 6 times in the past 2 months, which made no sense because he'd never shown interest in visiting her before. I went through more statements right there at her kitchen table. Found ATM withdrawals going back 4 months. Approximately $800 stolen, all from ATMs near his apartment or places he hung out. The pattern was obvious. He'd take her card, pull cash, return it before she noticed. I didn't tell my wife yet. Needed to be absolutely certain. I'd installed security cameras at my mother's place 6 months ago and the dementia started showing up. Pulled up the footage on my phone. There he was, clear as anything, going through her purse while she was in the bathroom. Pocketed the card, left, came back 40 minutes later. Did the same thing on another date. Went to his apartment the next day unannounced. He answered looking confused about why I was there. I walked right past him into his living room, pulled up the bank statements from my phone, and told him to explain. He got defensive, said I was accusing him of something crazy. I showed him the camera footage. He said my mother gave him permission, said she asked him to withdraw money for her, said he was just helping. I asked why he was withdrawing cash near his apartment when my mother lives 40 minutes away. Why he never mentioned any of this to me or my wife. Why the amounts kept going up. He couldn't keep his story straight, kept stuttering and contradicting himself. Told him he had one option. Pay back every cent within 30 days or I'm reporting him to the authorities. He started crying, saying he was desperate, had bills, didn't know what else to do. I told him he could have asked me for help instead of stealing from a vulnerable old woman. He said he knew I'd say no. He was right about that. I would have. Left his place and called my wife immediately. Told her everything. She didn't believe me at first, said I must be mistaken about something. I sent her the footage right then. She went silent for a long time. Then said we needed to talk to him together, that there must be some explanation. I told her I already confronted him and he admitted it. She spent the entire next day defending him, said he was going through a hard time, made a mistake. The family helps family. I reminded her he stole from my mother, not hers. She actually said my mother probably wouldn't even remember, so what's the harm? I almost walked out right then. The harm is her son is a thief who targets elderly people with cognitive problems. I told her I'm cutting him off completely. No more rent money, no more car insurance, no more phone bill. She's been paying all that from our joint account. Told her if she wants to keep supporting him, it comes from her personal account only. Changed my mother's debit card and PIN the next day. Set up alerts for any withdrawals over $100. Installed more cameras inside her house in the common areas. The stepson started calling and texting nonstop, begging me not to cut him off, promising he'd pay everything back. A few days later, the stepson showed up at my house while I was out. My wife let him in. Came home to find them both in the living room. He tried apologizing again, said he'd get the money somehow. I asked how he planned to do that with no income. He said he'd figure it out. Told him to leave. My wife said I was being cruel. I said stealing from someone with dementia is cruel. Then I went through our joint account statements. My wife had been sending him money behind my back even after I said no more. $600 one week, $400 the week before. She'd apparently been doing this for months. Confronted her immediately. She said it's her money too and she can spend it how she wants. Opened a separate bank account the next day and rerouted my direct deposit. Calculated exactly half of all joint expenses and set up automatic transfers for my share only. Told her she's responsible for her half now. If she wants to drain her portion supporting a thief, that's her choice, but I'm done subsidizing it. The 30-day deadline got closer. He hadn't paid back a single cent. I knew he wouldn't. I had already made up my mind that I was reporting him regardless. My mother asked why the stepson hadn't visited lately. I told her the truth about what he'd done. She got really quiet, then said she wondered where her money had been going. Said she thought she was just forgetting things more than usual. The deadline passed. He paid back exactly $0. Spent the morning gathering all my evidence. Bank statements, camera footage, text messages where he basically admitted what he did. Went down and filed a detailed report. My wife found out I filed the report that evening. She lost it completely. Screaming, crying, saying I ruined her son's life. I told her he ruined his own life. She threatened to leave. I told her she knows where the door is. Now I'm sitting here writing this because I need outside perspective. My wife's entire family is calling me vindictive and cruel. They're saying I should have handled this privately, that involving authorities is too far, that he's family and family doesn't do this to each other. But he stole from my mother, someone who can't fully defend herself anymore, someone who trusted him completely. I'm not backing down on this. I don't care if my wife leaves. I don't care if her whole family hates me forever. He crossed a line that you don't come back from. There have to be consequences, real ones, not just a lecture and a promise to do better next time. He's 27 years old, not some confused kid. He knew exactly what he was doing when he went through my mother's purse. He knew what he was doing every single time he used her card. He saw an opportunity to exploit someone vulnerable and he took it repeatedly. I gave him 30 days to make it right. He could have gotten a job, any job, and started making payments. He could have sold his stuff. He could have borrowed money from his mother or her family, who are so eager to defend him now. He did nothing, just kept begging and making empty promises while his mother sent him money behind my back. And the thing that really gets me is my wife is acting like I'm the bad guy here. I've supported her son for years, paid for things I don't have to pay for, helped him out more times than I can count. And this is how he repays that? By stealing from my mother? And my wife wants me to just forgive and forget because he's our son. My wife's sister came by the house a few days ago trying to guilt trip me. Said her nephew is suicidal over this, that my wife is devastated, that I'm being heartless. I told her he's genuinely suicidal, she should get him professional help, not try to manipulate me into dropping charges. She kept pushing, saying I have the power to fix all this. I asked her point blank if someone stole nearly $9,000 from her elderly mother, would she just let it go? She says that's not the same thing. I asked her to explain how it's different. She left without answering. My wife moved out 3 days ago, packed her stuff while I was at my mother's place and went to stay with her sister. Left a note saying she can't be married to someone who would destroy her child. I texted back asking if she meant the same child who destroyed her mother-in-law's financial security. She didn't respond. I've started to process the protecting of my assets and making sure everything is handled properly if she files for divorce, which seems likely at this point. Part of me is sad about that. We had 8 good years before this. So here I am. My marriage is probably over. My wife's family hates me. Her son is facing serious charges. And I'm asking internet strangers if I'm the problem here because everyone in my actual life is telling me I am. But I keep coming back to the same thing. So, am I the a-hole here? Am I really being vindictive and cruel like they say? Or am I doing what anyone would do when they find out someone stole nearly $9,000 from their vulnerable elderly mother? You even gave him the world's most generous ultimatum, 30 days to pay it back and avoid charges. Most people would have gone straight to the police after watching security footage of someone going through their cognitively impaired mother's purse. You actually gave him a chance to fix what he'd done before the real consequences kicked in, and he chose not to take it. Plain and simple, you're not the a-hole here. Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since my original post. A lot of people told me I did the right thing and to stay strong. Some said I was too harsh. I appreciate all the feedback, but honestly, I wasn't looking for permission to change my mind. I just needed to make sure I wasn't completely losing it with everyone around me saying I'm wrong. Things have moved fast. Apparently, when you have video evidence and clear bank records, these investigations don't take forever like I thought they would. Got a call from the investigator saying they had enough to move forward with charges. The stepson was formally charged about a week ago. Not getting into specifics, but it's multiple counts and it's serious. My wife completely fell apart when she found out. Here's the thing that gets interesting, though. During their investigation, they found something I had no idea about. Turns out the stepson had convinced my mother to add him as an authorized user on one of her credit cards about 6 months ago. Told her it was for emergencies. Then he racked up $43,000 in charges. Restaurants, online shopping, even a weekend trip somewhere with his girlfriend. I didn't know about this credit card because my mother never mentioned it, and I was only monitoring her checking account. The investigator found it when they did a full financial review of her accounts. So the total he stole wasn't $8,400, it was $12,700. My wife packed up and moved out 2 days after he was charged. Did it while I was visiting my mother. Came home to half the house empty and a note on the kitchen counter saying she can't be married to someone who would destroy her child. The stepson's girlfriend left him, the one he took on that trip using my mother's credit card. Apparently, she had no idea where the money was coming from, and when she found out, she was horrified, ended things immediately and moved out of his place. He called my wife crying about how he's lost everything and everyone hates him. My wife then called me, begging me to make a statement saying I want charges dropped. I said no and hung up. My wife filed for legal separation last week. Not divorce yet, but separation. Her filing claims irreconcilable differences. That's fine with me. I'm not fighting it. I already talked to someone about protecting my assets and making sure everything gets divided fairly when this inevitably becomes a divorce. Fast forward to a few days ago. The stepson tried calling my mother directly, called her house phone. She answered before I could tell her not to. He tried apologizing, saying he made a terrible mistake, asked if she could tell me to drop the charges. My mother, despite her dementia, had this moment of complete clarity, told him she trusted him and he betrayed that trust, and she hopes he learns something from this. Then she hung up on him. My wife's family is apparently organizing some kind of intervention. They want me to meet with all of them to discuss the situation. I told the sister no when she called to invite me. There's nothing to discuss. The credit card company reversed most of the fraudulent charges after I provided them with all the investigation documents and reports. Small victory there. At least my mother isn't on the hook for his theft on that front anymore. Still doesn't get back the cash he stole from her checking account, but it's something. Divorce mediation is scheduled to start next month. My wife is already making noise about wanting spousal support even though she works. Her argument is apparently that she's emotionally traumatized by the situation. My argument is she's not entitled to financial support from someone she's been demonizing for months. We'll see how that goes. The stepson took a plea deal finally. Happened 2 days ago. I wasn't consulted, but I got informed about it afterwards. He pled guilty to reduced charges. Part of the deal is restitution, probation, and community service. No jail time, which honestly made me angry, but apparently there's standards for first-time offenders in these cases. The restitution is structured as monthly payments over 5 years, $254 a month. It's something, but it's insulting considering what he did. My wife called it excessive punishment for a mistake. I called it getting off extremely easy for elder abuse. He's supposed to make his first payment next month. I'm not holding my breath. He's still unemployed as far as I know, and his family keeps enabling him, so there's no actual pressure for him to get it together. My wife officially filed for divorce yesterday. Not separation anymore. Full divorce. She wants half of everything, including the house. She's not getting the house. She can have her fair share of equity, but I'm keeping the property. Already made that clear. Found out today that the stepson is telling people I forced him to take the plea deal by refusing to drop charges. Like I had some obligation to let him off the hook. The entitlement is unreal. He committed a crime. He got caught. He's facing consequences. That's how this works. But somehow in his mind, in his family's mind, I'm the bad guy for not protecting him from his own actions. Someone from my wife's family, not sure who, has been leaving messages on my voicemail. Haven't listened to them, just delete them when I see them. I've got nothing to say to any of them, and they've got nothing to say that I want to hear. My mother's dementia hasn't gotten worse, which is good. The stress of all this hasn't helped, but she's stable. I've increased security at her house even more, changed all her passwords, set up more monitoring on her accounts, installed additional cameras, making sure this never happens again. People keep asking me if I feel bad about any of this, if I regret how things turned out. Honestly, no. I regret that it happened in the first place. I regret that someone I helped and supported for years turned out to be the kind of person who would steal from a vulnerable elderly woman. I regret that my wife chose to defend that behavior instead of standing up for what's right. But I don't regret holding him accountable. I don't regret filing that report. I don't regret refusing to drop charges. And I don't regret cutting him off financially. He made his choices. These are the consequences. That's it. The divorce is going to be messy. My wife is already trying to make it as difficult as possible. But I'm keeping the house and I'm not paying spousal support. She can have her share of equity in her portion of retirement accounts. Clean break. That's all she's getting from me. So that's where things stand now. Stepson took a plea deal and is supposed to start making restitution payments. My wife filed for divorce. Her family hates me, and I'm perfectly fine with all of it because I know I did the right thing. The fact that investigators uncovered additional fraud without you even knowing about it pretty much settles the question of whether you overreacted. If anything, you underestimated how far it went. Your wife framing this as you destroying her child continues to miss the central issue. Her adult son destroyed his own stability the moment he decided stealing from a vulnerable elderly woman was easier than getting help or getting a job. And for what it's worth, refusing to meet for a family intervention makes sense. There isn't a misunderstanding left to solve. The legal system reviewed the evidence, charges were filed, and a guilty plea was entered. This stopped being a family disagreement the moment criminal behavior was proven in court. What do you think? What would you have done? And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time. And please put your chair back where you found it.